It was supposed to be just one night, one dumb night where I crashed at my best friend's place because I missed the last train home, but that night it changed everything. I hadn't planned to end up at Caleb's place. We'd met for drinks after work, just a quick catch-up between two guys who'd known each other since freshman year of college. Same old stuff, couple pints, some wings, endless banter. Caleb had always been my favorite person to talk to. Funny, quick-witted, way too charming for someone who claimed not to try. He was also straight, or at least, that's what I'd always told myself. It was raining hard when we left the bar, and I realized too late that I'd missed the last train. Cabs were a nightmare. Caleb just laughed and said, "Come crash at mine, dumbass. It's not like I don't have a couch." I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because the idea of sleeping under the same roof as Caleb, after 3 beers and all that playful teasing he always did, felt like temptation. I'd been low-key crushing on him for years, kept it quiet, safe. But tonight, I was tired, a little buzzed, and if I was being honest, I wanted to say yes. So I did. His place wasn't big, just a 1-bedroom in a quiet part of town, filled with plants he always forgot to water and shelves cluttered with records and old baseball trophies. It smelled like cedar and laundry detergent. Somehow, it still felt like him. He tossed me a towel and a dry shirt. "Bathroom's free. I'll get some blankets." While I changed, I tried not to think too hard about how soft his shirt felt against my skin, or how it smelled faintly like him. When I came out, the couch was made up. Neat. Caleb was already in his bedroom, door halfway closed, light spilling through the crack. I flopped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. The rain was still going strong, and the city outside his windows felt far away. I couldn't sleep. My brain wouldn't shut off. And then I heard his door open. "Hey," he said, voice low and rough with sleep. "You good?" "Yeah," I lied. He paused. "Couch too weird?" "No, it's fine. Just can't sleep." Another pause. "You can come in here if you want. The bed's big enough." My heart tripped over itself. I sat up. "You sure?" He nodded. "You've seen how I sleep. I barely move. Plus, it's freezing in here." He wasn't wrong. I followed him into the bedroom. The light was off now, just the faint glow of the city bleeding in through the curtains. Caleb was already under the blanket, facing the wall. I slipped in carefully, trying not to make it weird. We lay there in silence. The bed wasn't that big. I could feel the heat of his body, the subtle rise and fall of his breathing. I told myself not to read into it, that this was just two friends sharing a bed. Nothing more. But then, he moved. Just a little. A small shift closer. His knee brushed mine. And stayed there. I froze. Then he whispered, "You ever think about stuff like this?" My throat went dry. "Like what?" He rolled onto his back, head turned toward me. I could barely make out his expression in the dark. "I don't know," he said. "Like what it'd be like if things were different." I didn't answer. Because, yeah, I'd thought about it. More times than I could count. He exhaled slowly. "I'm not saying anything has to happen. I don't know. You ever feel like you're holding something in for so long, it just gets heavy?" I turned toward him. "Yeah," I said softly. "I do." He reached out. His hand found mine under the blanket. And for the first time in years, I didn't pull away. I didn't say anything, just let my hand stay in his. We weren't even really holding hands. More like our fingers were just barely touching, but the contact sent a ripple through my chest that I wasn't ready for. I could feel Caleb's breath slow, like he was trying to read the room through the silence. Then he said, "You're warm." I let out a quiet laugh. "So are you." He shifted again. Closer this time. Our shoulders touched. That was when I realized how awake I suddenly was. All the beer haze, all the sleepiness from the couch, gone in an instant. My brain was wide open now, every nerve humming. "I used to wonder," Caleb said, his voice barely above a whisper, "if I was the only one." I swallowed. "The only one? What?" Who thought about it? About you? He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. I couldn't. I was too busy trying to remember how to breathe. Caleb, my best friend, the guy who once made fun of me for crying at a movie, the guy who'd been with more girls than I could keep track of, was lying next to me in the dark, saying he'd thought about me. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" I asked. He let out a breath, shaky. "Didn't want to mess things up. We've always been good. You've always been solid. I didn't want to ruin that." I turned on my side to face him. His eyes met mine in the dim light, serious and searching. "You haven't ruined anything." He nodded slowly, like he wanted to believe it but wasn't sure yet. Then his fingers moved. Just a bit, slid further against mine. This time, he did hold my hand. Properly. Fully. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "I don't even know what I want." I squeezed his hand gently. "That's okay." We lay like that for a long time. Quiet. Still. But not asleep. I think we were both afraid that if we did fall asleep, it would break the spell. Or worse, wake us up from something we'd only imagined. At some point, Caleb let go of my hand and turned back onto his side. But this time, his back didn't face me. He stayed close. Closer than before. His knee found mine again, and our legs tangled like it was the most natural thing in the world. I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, but because I didn't know what else to do with everything rushing through me. I opened my eyes, unsure if I'd imagined it. But no, it was there, and it wasn't moving away. I didn't say anything, neither did he. His hand stayed there, warm and steady, anchoring us both in a moment that didn't feel real. And then I felt him inch forward. His forehead gently touched mine, barely there. "I don't want to be weird," he murmured. "You're not," I whispered back. Silence. Then, "Can I?" He didn't finish the question. He didn't have to. I nodded, just once, and Caleb kissed me. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't practiced. It wasn't smooth or cinematic, but it was real. Honest. Shaky breath and all. When he pulled back, his eyes were wide, like he didn't quite believe it had happened. "Sorry," he said, voice tight. "Don't be," I whispered. He stared at me. Then, finally, he smiled, small, nervous, but real. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," he admitted. And this time, I kissed him back. That second kiss lingered longer. It wasn't rushed, and it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Slow, warm, a little uncertain but honest. We were figuring it out in real time, two best friends finally stepping into the space between us that we'd been avoiding for years. When we broke apart again, I could feel his breath on my cheek, his forehead resting lightly against mine. "I don't know what happens next," he said quietly. "Me either. But I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. Me either." We both let out small, awkward laughs at the exact same time, which made it easier to breathe. For a few seconds, it felt like we were back in our usual rhythm, cracking up over something no one else would understand. Only this time, we were tangled up in a bed together, lips still damp, hearts beating like they were trying to tell us something. Caleb shifted back just enough to look at me, one hand still resting on my side. "This feels so weird," he said. "But not bad." I nodded. "Yeah, like everything's different but also not?" He gave a slow, thoughtful grin. "That sounds like something you'd say." "Hey, I'm trying to be deep." "No, you're trying to avoid saying how freaked out you are." "Okay, fine, a little." "Same." We just stared at each other. The room was still dark, still quiet, but nothing about it felt calm. It felt charged, like something unspoken had cracked open and was now pouring between us without restraint. "You're not gonna, ghost me after this, right?" I asked, only half joking. Caleb scoffed. "You sleep in my bed, kiss me, and then ask if I'm gonna ghost you. I'm covering my bases." He reached up, ran a hand through his messy hair, and sighed. "I've been thinking about this, us, for a while. I just didn't know if it was something real, or just one of those passing thoughts." "And now?" His eyes searched mine. "Now I'm pretty sure it's not passing." I didn't know what to say to that. Not immediately. Because he wasn't just talking about the kiss. He was talking about the whole damn thing. Our friendship, the quiet moments, the little touches, the way we always ended up on each other's couches, in each other's lives, without even trying. I'd spent years thinking my feelings for Caleb were mine to carry alone. I never imagined he might have been carrying his own version all along. "You've really thought about it?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Mostly at night. When it's quiet, when I can't sleep." I felt my heart stutter in my chest. "I thought you were straight," I said, because I needed to hear him say it. "I did too," he replied. He said it like it didn't hurt to admit it, like it was just a truth that had evolved. He paused, then added, "I'm not saying I have everything figured out, but I know I feel something when I'm around you, and tonight kind of confirmed that." I couldn't stop looking at him. The guy who used to shove popcorn into his mouth with both hands during movie nights. The guy who'd hold the back of my neck for no reason when we posed for photos. The guy who once drove 30 minutes just to bring me takeout after a bad breakup. That guy was lying next to me, watching me like I was the only real thing in the room. "What now?" I asked. Caleb exhaled like he'd been waiting for me to say that. "I don't want to rush anything," he said, "and I don't know if I'm ready to tell the world or even say what this is. But I do know I don't want it to stop." I nodded, every word hitting somewhere deeper than I expected. "Okay," I said. "We don't have to define it, but we don't ignore it either." "Deal." He reached for my hand again, fingers intertwining, without hesitation this time. And we fell asleep like that. Still figuring it out, still unsure, but not alone. I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a second, I couldn't remember where I was. The light coming through the blinds was too soft, the bed too warm, the air too still. Then I turned my head and saw the empty space beside me, the indentation on the pillow, the faint warmth still in the sheets, and it all came rushing back. The rain, the missed train, Caleb's bed, and everything that happened in it. I sat up slowly, running a hand through my hair. The apartment was quiet, except for the gentle clinking of a spoon against a mug in the kitchen. Part of me expected to feel panic, but it wasn't there. Instead, I felt steady, grounded in a way that was new but oddly comforting. I pulled on my hoodie and padded out to the kitchen. Caleb was standing at the counter, shirtless, wearing plaid pajama pants, stirring sugar into his coffee like nothing had changed. But when he looked up and saw me, something flickered behind his eyes, like relief, or maybe confirmation. "Mornin'," he said, voice still thick with sleep. "Hey," I replied, suddenly self-conscious. He poured me a cup without asking, sliding it across the counter. We stood in silence for a minute, sipping coffee like we hadn't kissed the night before, like we weren't standing in the soft afterglow of something massive. Then he broke the silence. "So, that wasn't just a dream, right?" I choked on my coffee. "Definitely not a dream." "Cool," he said, nodding to himself. "Just checking." He didn't look embarrassed. Just cautious, like he was trying to feel out how much of last night still existed now that the sun was up. "Still good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quickly. Maybe too quickly. "Are you?" He looked at me for a second before answering. "Yeah, I mean, my brain's going a million miles an hour, but yeah." We sat at the little kitchen table, the one we usually dumped keys and mail on, and just talked. About nothing. About everything. The weather, work, our weekend plans. Neither of us brought up the obvious, but it hung in the air, wrapped around our words like static. After a while, I stood up and stretched. I should probably head home. Grab a shower, change clothes. Caleb looked at me, hesitant. "You don't have to rush out." I paused. "You sure?" He nodded. "Unless you want to." "I don't." "Good." I hesitated, then asked, "So what do we call this?" He leaned back in his chair. "I don't know. I mean, we don't have to slap a label on it right now." "Okay, but like, is this a one-time thing? Or..." He shook his head. "No, I don't think it is." Not for me. That made my stomach flip. You? Not a one-time thing, I said. We both smiled. Sheepish, but real. He stood up, walked around the table, and stopped right in front of me. Close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath, see the sleepy creases under his eyes. I meant what I said last night, he said. I don't want to pretend it didn't happen, I nodded. Good, because I don't think I could. He reached out and touched my hand again, the same way he had the night before. Soft, slow, like it still scared him a little, but not enough to stop. We stood there in the middle of the kitchen, holding hands like idiots, smiling like we'd just gotten away with something. And for the first time in years, I felt seen, not just as the best friend, not just as the quiet one with the unspoken feelings, but as someone he could want, someone he did want. The rest of that weekend played out in this weird, suspended calm. Like, time had slowed just enough for us to exist in a bubble that no one else could touch. We didn't define anything, didn't talk about it in terms of, what are we now, or what does this mean? But the difference was there. In the way Caleb bumped his shoulder against mine when we stood brushing our teeth. In the way his hand would hover for half a second too long before passing me the remote. In the way we sat closer on the couch that night, our thighs pressed together under the throw blanket like it wasn't a big deal. It was the most natural thing in the world. And also completely surreal. On Sunday morning, he offered to make breakfast, which meant he fried 2 eggs and burnt the toast while I tried not to smile too much. You gonna critique my cooking the whole time? He asked, flipping an egg with the kind of focus he usually reserved for fantasy football. Only if you keep pretending this counts as cooking. He rolled his eyes, then glanced at me over his shoulder. You know, I like this. What, me roasting your culinary skills? No, this, you here. I looked down, hiding the way my lips parted a little. I like it too. We ate together on the floor by the coffee table, knees touching. It felt domestic in a way I hadn't realized I craved, like we'd done it 100 times before, but it was new and loaded. At one point, Caleb looked at me and said, "So, are we keeping this to ourselves for now?" I didn't need to ask what this meant. Probably smart, I said. Not that I'm trying to hide. I just want to make sure we know what we're doing before people start asking questions we can't answer yet. He nodded. Same. I'm still figuring a lot of this out. I reached across the table and touched his fingers. No pressure, okay? He smiled. I know. I just don't want to mess it up. You won't. Later that day, I finally did go home. The train ride back felt weirdly quiet. The city didn't look different, but everything felt different. Like I had a secret I couldn't stop turning over in my head. The next few days were a balancing act. We didn't change much on the surface. Still texted the same dumb memes. Still talked about work and weekend plans. But beneath all of it, there was a new rhythm. A deeper current. Every time my phone lit up with his name, I felt it. Then came Thursday. He texted, "You free tonight?" "Yeah, you? Wanna come over?" Always. When I got to his place, it was already dark. He met me at the door with that quiet smile he always gave me when he didn't want to say too much. He stepped aside to let me in, and as soon as the door shut behind us, he pulled me into a hug. It wasn't a casual hug. It was slow. Deliberate. His hands stayed on my back a second longer than they needed to. And then, without a word, he kissed me again. This time there was no hesitation. His hand found my jaw. My fingers curled into his shirt. We weren't stumbling or unsure anymore. We were just there, in it. Like we'd both decided to stop pretending we didn't want this. When we pulled apart, breathless, he whispered, "I've thought about this all week." "Same," I murmured. And just like that, we stopped dancing around it. After that kiss, neither of us said much. We didn't need to. We moved through the apartment like it was something sacred. Like the space between us was no longer a question mark, but a quiet, burning certainty. Caleb grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, handed me one, and we ended up on the couch like always. Only now, he sat closer. Not pretend close, not accidental touching close. but his thigh pressed against mine, his arm behind my back, his hand lightly brushing my side close. We watched something on Netflix, though I couldn't tell you what. I was too aware of him. His fingers started tracing slow, distracted shapes on the hem of my shirt. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't even particularly intimate. But it felt massive, like he was getting used to touching me and didn't want to stop. At one point, I turned my head to say something, maybe about the show, maybe about the moment, and he kissed me again before I could speak. And this one was different. Longer, slower, like he wanted to memorize it. Later, when the show had ended and the beers were warm, we were still there, curled into the corner of the couch, half sprawled over each other. Caleb looked at me, his brow slightly furrowed. I keep waiting for this to feel wrong. Does it? He shook his head. No, it's the opposite. It feels right, which freaks me out more than if it didn't. I nodded, letting that sink in. I knew what he meant. When something you've quietly wanted for years suddenly becomes real, it doesn't always feel like relief. Sometimes it feels like standing on the edge of something you might not be ready for. He leaned his head back on the cushion. I'm not trying to make this complicated, but I think about you a lot, even when I'm not supposed to. That admission hung in the air for a second before I replied, "Who says you're not supposed to?" He smiled without opening his eyes. I don't know, my brain, society, the 10,000 girls I've dated. They're not here now. He opened his eyes and looked at me. You are, I swallowed. I always have been. That got to him. I saw it. His expression changed, softened, like something unspoken had just clicked into place. Do you want to stay over again? He asked. Yeah, I said. If you want me to. I do. He stood up and offered me his hand. It was small, dumb, probably unnecessary, but I took it. And when we climbed into bed that night, it wasn't awkward. It wasn't experimental. It was warm and comfortable and real. We lay there in the dark, this time tangled up without pretending we weren't. He pressed his forehead to mine, hand on my chest like he needed to feel my heartbeat. I don't want this to be something I regret, he said. It won't be. And I meant it. He kissed me once more before whispering, night, night. We fell asleep like that, like maybe we finally knew where we belonged. I woke up before him. It was early, still dim outside, and the room felt wrapped in that quiet kind of stillness you only get right before the world stirs to life. I stayed still, not wanting to break the moment. Caleb was lying on his side, his face relaxed, mouth slightly open, one arm slung across my stomach like it belonged there. I stared at the ceiling, heart calm in a way it hadn't been in months, maybe years. It wasn't just the kiss or the touches or the way he looked at me. It was what it all meant, what it had the potential to become. We hadn't said the word relationship, hadn't declared anything official, but it didn't feel casual either. This was something. He stirred a little, breathing shifting against my neck. Are you awake? I whispered. HMM, he muttered, not moving. I've been pretending to sleep so you wouldn't get up. I laughed quietly. Why? Because I like this. Us. This. I turned my head toward him. He still had his eyes closed but was smiling now. You sure you're not just still half asleep? I teased. He cracked one eye open. Nah. I've had enough time to think about it. I'm sure. We stayed like that for a while. No urgency. No pressure. Just quiet understanding. When we finally got up and made coffee, real breakfast this time, with pancakes and actual effort, it felt like we were settling into something. Not rushing it, just letting it happen. A few days passed, the world crept back in. Work, errands, group chats, life. But something had shifted. I started leaving a toothbrush at his place. He started texting me, home yet? Whenever I stayed out late. We still didn't broadcast anything. We didn't need to. The people who mattered would know when it was time. The only person I told was my sister, who immediately texted back, told you, he's so into you. But for now, it was just ours. One night, maybe a month later, we were sitting on his fire escape, drinking beers. The city lit up below us. Caleb reached over and grabbed my hand without even thinking. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yeah? Do you ever feel like we took too long?" I thought about that. About the years of brushing against each other's lives, too scared to say the quiet thing out loud. "Yeah," I said. "But I also think maybe we needed the time to figure ourselves out first." He nodded, thoughtful. "That makes sense." Then he leaned over and kissed me. Soft, familiar, easy. Like we'd been doing this all our lives. Because maybe, in a way, we had. We just hadn't admitted it.